All right, well, I'm going to get started. Um, you're here for the West Scale Insect Management uh, webinar today. I am Gabe Verdusco. I have my coworker Joey Bofa helping today to help chime in on any questions or anything that pops up in the chat there. And then I'll be able to answer any other questions at the end. Quick safety brief, check your surroundings for any trip hazards, know your weather, if you're going to have any inclement weather, and then make sure if you're in a vehicle, please be parked and in a safe location. I know it's easy to want to drive and listen. Housekeeping slide. Type your questions into the Q&A box using your control panel. We will answer questions at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent out 2 days after the webinar. This webinar is worth 1 ISA CEU for the live broadcast. After the webinar, Rainbow will submit your name and certification number to ISA on your behalf. If you didn't enter in your ISA certification number during registration, or if you aren't sure, please type your ISA number into the chat, into the Q&A now. Sorry, not the chat. Excuse me. Again, my name is Gabe Verdusco. I'm our team's regional arborist advisor. We've created the name of the arborologist. I've recently just passed my track, so I was super excited to get that. All the other qualifications through the ISA Certified Arborist. Also achieved my PCA license and QAC, and I have an extensive background in just the industry, studying plant sciences, working at USDA, and as a horticulturalist. And then my previous position, I was with the Cooperative Extension working with invasive insects, Orange County. So who we are, if you don't already know, Rainbow Ecoscience, we are a plant healthcare company. We manufacture and distribute the products and equipment for the landscape. So some key facts here about our company. We've averaged 1,200 landscape tech support calls per year. We've averaged 150 unique research trials per year. And we actually have 6 new core values. So that's science, safety, love, integrity, teamwork, and education. And I think my favorite one right now is love. So learning objectives for today for this webinar is to become familiar with scale insect issues in the landscape and helping you distinguish between armored and soft scales and why that's important. And then we all want to know what can we use to treat for these insects and how to control them. So what are scales? Well, here you can see the taxonomy of insects and scales in the Hemiptera order, which is the same as leafhoppers, true bugs, cicadas, aphids, and these are going to be your piercing and sucking insects. So there are 5 families of scales, and there's soft scale, armored scale, felty, mealybugs, and giant scales. All of them are going to have an impact, but with soft scale being the most common. Scales are immobile, wingless, and they lack a separate head or other recognizable body parts. The scales are abundant. When they are abundant, their feeding can cause discoloration or distortion of the leaves, and the shoots and plants may appear water stressed. So they can cause branch and terminal dieback and reduce that overall growth and health and vigor of that tree. So going to the next one here. So what's their impact on plants? Well, it's going to be that aesthetic appearance. So as I mentioned, they looked overall, there's that decline in their health. I'll have a picture coming up of that. You're going to see honeydew or sooty mold that the scale can create this exudate that will basically drop all over any surface that's underneath them. And then it decreases the photosynthetic activity, and there's the transmission of viruses, and then economic losses, losing our tree species, something we don't want. So what's going to be their impact on properties? So here you see these trees that are leafing out in this urban setting, and there's one that hasn't leafed out. So being a proactive arborist, or being out in the field, just being proactive, and you want to take a closer look at this tree. So you see a nice, healthy set of trees. Why is this one that not looking good? So you want to obviously take a look. If this is your property or one you're managing, go ahead and take a look. And if you look closer, why it's declining is because there's an infestation of scale on this, causing that decline, and it's weakened its overall health. So taking a proactive approach and identifying what's going on. So here we can see a site where there's some crepe myrtles on the property. One on the right is super healthy, vigorous, no pests or pathogens. And then the one on the left, you can see it's declining. So again, taking that proactive approach, getting closer, identifying what's going on here with that overall health. And so you can also see those predisposing factors of compaction, and there's probably increased surface temperatures, creating that surrounding environment just to become really hot. And so that's going to right then and there decline that overall health and leaving it susceptible to the secondary pests. So if you get a closer look, and there's scale on it. So again, this one is a closer look of the sooty mold that is on those leaf surfaces. And with the scale being in these crepe myrtles, anything underneath it, as I mentioned, will drop onto the surfaces. So vehicles, pavement, pretty much anything. So soft scales. Soft scales grow up to 1/4 of an inch long and have a smooth cotton waxy surface. And then at maturity, these soft scales are usually larger and more rounded than the armored scale. Soft scales and certain other types feed on that phloem sap, and then they will excrete that sticky honeydew, which is what we don't want, and we don't want on our surfaces. And it's giving that blackish sooty mold that we can see. And we'll cover a few soft scales, but that's going to include black scale, brown scale, Lacanium, and then there's tulip tree scale. So armor scales have a flattened plate-like shell that is less than 1/8 of an inch in diameter, and the actual insect body is underneath the waxy shell. So that body will remain on that plant if the shell is removed. And then armor scales do not produce honeydew. Most of their life is not mobile, and then they can have several generations per year. And this will allow for extended crawler emergence. So they will overwinter as nymphs and adults. And some of the species include unanimous scale, oyster shell, and San Jose. And one thing I was just talking about with my counterpart is just understanding the life cycle is really going to help with treatment. And I'm going to cover that in a slide upcoming. But we've developed the Rainbow Scale Toolbox, which has been really handy when you want to know what product to use, when, and what application. So there's foliar sprays, there's bark sprays, tree injections, and soil applications. So dependent on your situation, your site, your client's needs, we're going to help get you the best application method for you. So understanding the life cycle is important because it's going to help you understand when to treat. But the unique thing with some of our regions on the West is that it's hard to, well, the unique thing is that it doesn't get really too cold in some areas. So especially down here in Southern California, the life cycle can be present at all times. So it's really hard to understand or comprehend growing degree days when we don't get, a cold winter, or something that you might see on the East Coast or colder regions. So understanding this life cycle is important. So some species move only during their first instar phase or crawler phase, and during this period, crawlers are sensitive to product applications. In the next phase, future instars lose their eggs and form a protective barrier, and that's the waxy shell or covering that I had mentioned. This works well to repel many traditional contact insecticides. So here's our full rainbow scale toolbox for soft scale management. Again, we have these handy if anybody wants access to this. This can help give you the approximate, give you the product, approximate timing, and the application method. Again, it's just approximate. It's there's so many microclimates and things vary. So just knowing your site, your spaces, and understanding, but it's giving you a close window of when to apply. And then, so we have our Proxite, there's Transtek Infusible, knowing that, Zytect, and then our horticultural oil. Some of them, be sure to check on the, if it's registered to use in your state, that's going to be helpful as well. I know Transtek Infusible is not registered in California. And I will go to the next slide here. So for armored scale, again, this is what product to use, timing. And one thing that you will notice here is that, one thing that you're going to notice is that Zytect is removed, and that's because it's not effective on armored scales. And so it's not an option because of how they feed. So armored scale feed on the phloem and not the xylem. So just a little fact there. And then also note that when using insecticides, there is the potential to cause secondary pest outbreaks. And so that might be, you might see spider mites come up as a secondary pest. And so knowing that when you are treating for scale, there might be, might need a second application, and we have that product. So now I will go through some common landscape pests, some soft scale and some armored scales. So first one is Lacanium scale, and Lacanium scale has a typical soft scale life cycle. It has several species in the same genus. There's the European fruit Lacanium scale, a frosted scale, and then oak Lacanium scale. And some of the hosts for the European are alder, almond, aspen, and you can see the whole list there on that slide. Frosted scale is going to be ash, birch, elms, laurel, and then of course oak Lacanium will be our coast live oaks and other oaks. And I gave this presentation last year, but and my Wi-Fi was really bad. But this year I wanted to include a fun little fact. But so the name Lacanium comes from the Latin word lacane, meaning bowl or dish, and that's because these have a rounded helmet-like shape resembling a small bowl. So that might help you when you're trying to identify them. And here is our treatment calendar, our treatment guide. And again, this is available for you. And one thing, going back, so make a note that, again, this is going to be the typical life cycle for our soft scales. So Lacanium scale there's so many different methods you can use here, whether it's be foliar, bark, tree injection, or soil application. Again, I think the biggest takeaway is understanding what's going to be effective for your site. Is there moisture? Moisture is going to help with uptake. Is it a situation where you might have to do a bark spray? So again, it's nice to have a lot of options whether you want to what you want to do. So calico scale, I think these ones are really unique looking. Calico scale is a soft scale and it can occur on many deciduous trees. Usually, you will find them on the under shaded plant parts. And liquid amber is their preferred host. And then occasional hosts, you'll find them on stone fruit, box elder, maples, plums, and walnuts. And then the adult females, as you see in this photo from UCIPM, have that calico coloration. And then these scales look like tiny dome turtle shells with that striking pattern, calico pattern. And it's one of the most visual distinctive soft scales. And again, here's this, our kind of treatment guide. And you can use all application methods for the scale with our insecticide Zytec. You could see spider mite flare-ups, and then so keep that in mind. I will go through a few common species of armored scale. This is going to be obscure scale, and it is an armored scale. So it is generally not a damaging host, but more of a nuisance pest. So obscure scale will overwinter as mated females, and those crawlers will hatch in late spring and be effective for almost 2 months. This gives you a good amount of time to treat during this phase, and males emerge late summer to mate. Might have mixed up my slides here by accident. But again, this is an armored scale, and the options here are Proxite, Transtect, Transtect Infusible, and then for oil. And this is your irregular pine scale. It is a serious insect pest of various pines, and especially our Monterey pine. This scale sucks and feeds on pine needles and small twigs, and then they will excrete that abundant honeydew on which they will create that black sooty mold that's going to grow on our surfaces, and it looks really bad. So the large infestations on the scale cause needles to turn yellow or brown, and then they're going to drop prematurely and can seriously weaken trees and even sometimes kill these young pines. Yeah, I did mix these scales up. Sorry, this is our soft scale, and again, another treatment guide here. Like many other scales, this species has a more unpredictable shape, and then it's often appearing as irregular bumps rather than your typical round oval form seen in other soft scales. So messed up my order there on my. So next will be our tulip tree scale, and this is one I've primarily and commonly heard of my region, and it's a serious problem on our tulips and our magnolias, and then heavy infestations weaken or kill young trees, and on older trees, high populations can cause limb dieback and decline, and sometimes the death of our trees. This scale produces so much honeydew that it can cause cars, sidewalks, and other surfaces beneath the infested tree to become sticky and coated with a black sooty mold. Again, another nice handy guide that we have available. A lot of options as far as foliar sprays, bark sprays, tree injections, and soil applications. So if you need further help with understanding one of these products or how to apply it, how to use it, my role would be to help support you in making that application, making sure you're mixing right, and showing you how to properly apply it, and making sure you're using PPE and following the label. So that's my role in supporting you, making those applications proper and leading to a successful elimination of this pest. So a wrap up, scale insects have varied and interesting life cycles. Knowing what species of scale you're dealing with is going to be the most important. That's going to help with successful management. And so choosing the appropriate systemic product and application method will offer excellent control. So again, knowing your species. If you don't know your species, send that to myself. We have a full team at Rainbow that can help out. And if it's something that we truly can't find out, you can always send in a sample to be identified. That's usually through the local ag commissioner. And then from there, making the appropriate application method based on, again, I think the key thing is knowing your site, knowing what's going to be most effective, and then whether it's soil application. Do you want to, maybe it's a crepe myrtle and the trunk's really small. You might not want to trunk inject that, right? So understanding tree species, knowing specifically what scale it is going to help. And we do have this picture here. So this is our scale insect management guide. I really love this. It's super handy. So if you do want that, it is available on our website, or you can follow up with me and I can give you that. Lastly, I wanted just to say that we have more webinars coming up. So we continue to offer training, e-learning, and then again, utilize our tech support. It's a great resource to just call and get help when you need it, even right when you're when you're out in the field. So we have a great team there. I forgot to remove that. So if you do have any further questions, you can email me or send me a call, send me a text. And then I think we're going to bring up the questions now. So I'll see if Joe Bofa has anything in me to help him out with, unless he answered it. But yeah, I want to thank you all for joining in, and I really appreciate it. And hopefully that was helpful. Let us see here if we have any questions. Hey, Joe.
Yep, I'm here.
Anything yet I could help out with, or?
No questions. Does anybody have any questions about scale in general, products being used? Okay, here we go. We got some. So from Juan Barba, we have a soft scale in Arizona infecting some Palo Verde trees to death. It is moving into California's PVs. Do you have an answer? I'm not exactly sure what the full question of that is, Juan.
Yeah. So it's a scale that's affecting the Palo Verde.
You could expound upon that.
I am not seeing the Q&A. Oh, here it is. We have soft scale in Arizona affecting some Palo Verde trees. So Juan, if you want to capture a picture, that would help us be able to identify it. And you can get my email that's on the screen here, or text it to me. So we can help you identify it, and then we can figure out which treatment option will be best for this scale. So I'd be interested to see what it is you're dealing with.
Here's another one that you probably know better than I do from Yamil Ramirez. Are all these products that we've shown okay to apply in California?
Emil, majority of them are all you're all able to use them in California, except Transtect Infusible is not registered in California. But again, if you are curious about our imidacloprid or dinotefuran, and you can actually go onto our website and type in our specific chemical, and it shows you. It's really nice that it shows you what states it's not registered in. So again, Transtek Diffusible is not registered in California, and each product has different states that are not registered for. So I know there's some that are like Nevada, and but for as far as California, as I know, everything is fine except again that Transtek Diffusible.
Uh, Here's another one. I mean, I guess either of us can answer this. Are scales the only bug that create honeydew? If we see honeydew, does that mean scales are present?
Uh, yeah, Benjamin, that's a good question. You will see honeydew from other insects, so that's aphids. So aphids is another one that will show honeydew. So it's not only scales, but if you do see that honeydew, I think that's a sign just to go ahead and take a closer look. Get in, get up in that canopy, get a leaf sample, and looking on the top side, underside of that leaf, and seeing is it scale, looking at the branches, or is there aphids? So other pests will create that honeydew.